Alright, this is my favorite ground clamp. Now, if you have any separation in your lead going to the machine, the minimum is 10 feet. Like this, there's a separation here, and the lead rolls up, and I can separate this and take it away in the field so that it doesn't drag on the ground. I can throw it in a bucket. 10 feet, OSHA requires this is your minimum, and all your connections have to be twist lock connections, cam lock. And if you buy a piece that's 25 feet, cut it in half, you got 12.5 feet for your stinger and for your ground. And I've made this one out of a vice grip, and it's there. Welded a bolt on the top, got a lug, Linco it says, and it's threaded onto there. Then put a strap across this on the back side. That way it keeps it from ripping it off sideways if it gets pulled. I really like this ground clamp. I can crimp onto material so that it is extremely tight, wiggling it on also. There's no arcing that happens across here when it's really tight. And with the curve on it like that, if you've got, or if I use my grasshopper ground when I'm pipelining, it'll grip that rod so it doesn't fall off. Works really good. A lot of people like this, so do I. After talking about the ground clamp, what size lead does a person need? And usually the general rule is follow the operator's manual, and that's again straight out of this Lincoln operator's manual that I have. And there's several things you need to pay attention to when you're doing the welding. As time goes by, you got to make sure that that lead does not get burned right about 6 inches before the connection. I don't know why, but after a lot of use, sometimes that area right there, maybe because it's being bent or moved around, or it's close to where the connection is, it just gets burned up, and you got to cut it back. And always make sure the welding machines are off before you do any work on that lead. So what Lincoln has said is if the cable is 0 to 50 feet long, that it needs to be a 1/0 at 100% duty cycle. And again, 50 to 100 feet, still at 1/0. 100 to 150 feet of lead. Now this is at 300 amps. 2/0 would be 100 to 150 feet. And 150 to 200 still at 2/0. And if you're 200 feet to 250 feet, you go to 3/0. Now that would very much apply if you're somewhere that you have to use a lot of lead. You got to get a larger diameter cable for that lead to weld with that amperage. What I mean by this lead, for some reason where this connection is to about right back in here, it's, you know, you're bending it around and welding with it, it gets hot right here where the stinger is. The heat comes down and it gets hot. A ground lead, not so much so, but it could happen. So this is just for the sleeve. That's all this is. I'm trying to loosen this up so I can get it off. It's probably been a year since I've changed this one. If you do a lot of welding, I'm sure you're going to go through 2-3 stingers in a year. Seriously. What happens is you wear it out where the little holder's at, and that one is worn out. It needs to be replaced. Okay, it came off there. Okay, if you can see, there's some copper right there, and the lead is torn, it's broken off. It does need to be replaced. It helps you with your amperage. You can see where it's been torn in places. So what I need to do is cut this back past here and redo that. So what I've done is I've taken a coupling, copper tubing coupling, and took a section of it out. That way I can crimp this down. And what's going to happen with this, I want to leave the crimped area on bottom, and then the stud that goes down in here to tighten it to the stinger is going to go on the top. Just put the sleeve on first. This is a brand new one. Like I said, it doesn't matter what one you pick, whatever it is that you're comfortable with. They're not in there very far anymore. I like the Linko the most of all of them. Now everybody has their preference. Sometimes it's just whatever's available. If you're out of town and you haven't got one in your truck and you just need something quickly, you just gotta grab it and use it. Of course, I don't like running that down hard because that will cut the wiring. So I'll cut it just enough where I can bend it and it'll break that insulation off. Now always good to find your stab length. And we're good. That's pretty close. So I need to cut this also at that length. So I'll get a marker and I'll mark that right there and cut it off. Okay, I've established my stab length. So try re-crimping that. Now you can get copper that is thinner than this thing, than this coupling that I used. There's other metals out there that are little thin sheets of copper. See if this helps. Hurts my stomach. Like I said, it's better to put this in a vise. Okay, it still won't quite go on. I mean, it is so close, but I do not want to strip that. So what I'm going to do is take a grinder and just clean that up just enough to where this passes. But I don't want to strip that. These newer ones, they have a tendency to do that. And I need to go down, and I don't want, like I said, I don't want to strip that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take the grinder and I'm going to clean that off just enough to where that sleeve will slide over. Okay, I've taken the grinder and I've ground that top of that down, and there's plenty of socket down in there still to loosen that up or tighten it. And then putting the sleeve back on, there's a stud right here. You get to that. So that it doesn't come loose and everything is protected. Now I've seen people take tape, electrical tape, and wrap around this. That's okay. My suggestion is that you stay dry. You don't want to get wet. If your feet are in the water, you're wearing waterproof boots. And you don't want any other part of your body to get wet. What's going to happen is if any part of your body is touching the base metal that is bare, it's going to flow. The current is going to flow through you wherever you're touching, and these little studs right here, it can flow through and to the ground. So you always want to stay dry. Always. Just want to pop in here real quick, let you know it's a serious thing, welding and getting electrocuted. What I'm wanting to say about staying dry is just that. You could be working outside in the summer and it is 100+ degrees, humid, and you're sweating big time. You're wringing wet underneath all this clothing because it's all fire resistant clothing. And you've got your arm pads on or you got leathers on, and you're going to get to sweating. And anywhere that pad is going to touch that bare base metal, that current is going to flow through that. Trust me, it's happened to me, and it's very scary when it happens. Hopefully nothing ever happens to anybody. If this happens to you and you can recover from it, it's very serious. So always remember to stay dry somehow. Your gloves, your hands get to sweating. You want to stay dry because every time you're touching something like that stinger and your elbow, your legs, you got to stay dry when you're welding. It's very important. It's a very serious thing, and be very careful out there.